Chapter 8, Moving into Soul Society. Please welcome the new Tres Espada, Tsubasa Akio. Every single Espada looked with wide eyes at the Arrancar before them in fear. Why? They could literally see the spiritual energy wrapped around him like snakes poised to strike at a moment's notice. The man impassively stared at them with harsh, cold, emotionless eyes that made even Ulquira flinch. The man scowled and tusk, as expected of a bunch of fakes. Weaklings. He took his seat beside Stark and looked at Aizen intensely, who started sweating. You better not forget the deal. He looked around him and said, the only reason I took the 3rd rank is to be able to fight that man again. Your stupid illusions and hypnosis won't work on me. You've seen it fail earlier, haven't you? He ended with a smirk, causing Aizen to slightly flinch, though no one noticed it. Of course, Tsubasa-san. I may not be trustworthy, but I respect those who deserves it, and thus I'll keep my end of the deal. Baragan, being the arrogant one, stood up abruptly and glared at Akio with one eye. Who do you think you are, you insolent brat? You're in my presence. The kayak. Akio simply looked at Baragan, and as he focused his Ryatsu on him, he said, You, the king. You can't even touch him and call yourself king. You're the brat over here. He kept on focusing his Ryatsu on Baragan, choking the man, and heatedly said, If you dare show that attitude to me again, I'll crush you. He clamped down on his Ryatsu and smirked when he saw Baragan cough and gasp for air. His smirk grew when everyone looked at him in fear. Why? In the process of Akio's glaring, the Seki stone table cracked. Ulquira came out of his shock first and asked what has been going through their mind since the beginning. Excuse me, Tsubasa-sama. Even Aizen was shocked to see the emotionless Ulquira stutter in fear. When Akio looked at him, Ulquira gulped and continued, What did you mean by us being fakes? Akio nodded and said, Glad you asked. All of you were forcefully made an Arrancar by this fool over here, thus you're fakes. Arrancarization is something only Vasto Lords should be able to do. Take Primera over here. He, like me, is a natural Arrancar. He paused, letting the info sink in. When Ulquira nodded, he continued, When a Vasto Lord becomes an Arrancar, said Vasto Lord gains every single abilities a Shinigami does, such as, he paused, opening his hand and created a Shakaho, throwing Aizen off the loop. Kaido. Got it. He smirked when he saw their dumbfounded expression on their face. The silence continued on for a bit before Aizen asked, How do you know Kaido? He got a smugly superior smirk from Akio. He then continued, No, never mind how. I already know that. Aizen then asked, How old are you? Akio's smirk widened, merely 800. The very first Arrancar. Many jaws dropped and Aizen's smug smirk vanished. Grimjow, being the stupid one, exclaimed, So that's why you called that old fart brat. Ha 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 ha. But why the hell do you look younger than us? Everyone was expecting Akio to snap, who instead simply smiled and said, It's because I died when I was 16 during my human life, and I therefore took that appearance after becoming an Arrancar. The underground training basement was tense. Two combatants worlds apart in power and skills stood 20 meters away from each other, staring into each other's eyes silently in their place. Those two being Tia and Ichigo. Earlier they had decided that after this spar, Ichigo would fix a training schedule for her which she'll follow until the war, in hopes of getting adjusted to her changes. He said he'd train her for 10 days and then would leave for Soul Society. He'd been given a task by the others in his squad after all. Around them were Tia's Fraxian, Kisuke, Yoruichi, Tessai with Jinto and Yoruru. Since the two would take up her training, they also decided to watch, since it'd give them a rough idea about how the changes affect her fighting style. Both combatants ready? Yoruichi asked, to which she got nods from both. You guys ready? She asked Tia's Fraxian, since they'd jump in the fight to support their master against Ichigo. At first they had told her that it wouldn't be needed, but some insistence from their master made them reluctantly agree to it. Yes, but still, 4 against 1. Isn't that a bit unfair? Sung-sun asked, to which she got incredulous looks. Even 10 of us against him wouldn't be enough. Trust me, Kisuke said. The girls looked at each other and nodded. Girls, don't use Ion here. He'll damage the whole property. Okay, Tia said, to which she heard groans but agreement from Sung-sun. Good. Tia, be prepared to cut me and don't hesitate, for I won't. Understood. Ichigo seriously asked, to which she nodded. Begin. Just as Yoruichi exclaimed, blood sprayed from a diagonal slash on Tia's body. Her Fraxian yelled and was about to rush in for support when she stopped them herself. She looked up and saw Ichigo standing in his position, calmly observing her with blood dripping from his sword. When did he pull out the sword? Tia grunted in pain. Focus regenerating that wound. Ichigo said to Tia, who focused and found her wound healed, albeit with some time. Now that we know it works, let's get serious. Ichigo's deadly calm voice and facial expression sent shivers down her skin. Not willing to give Ichigo another chance to attack, Tia rushed and dashed in and launched an overhead slash at him, which he deflected and cut her on the same place in just a split second, making her retreat to her original position. Having given her a chance to attack, Ichigo rushed in and horizontally slashed at her from her right, which she was able to block at the last moment but was blown back. Ichigo followed up with another similar slash, which she blocked again, only to fly away deeper into the basement. She rolled on the ground and got up in a crouch before raising her sword up with both hands just in time to stop an overhead slash, the force of which created a crater under her. With a grunt, she broke the stalemate and jumped back as she focused her Ryatsu in her blade and made a stabbing motion at him, sending a yellow projectile far faster than she recalled. Ola Azul. But much to her frustration, he slapped the attack away without any damage. Probably because of his Hyro, Ichigo had decided to use his Hollow Zanpakuto to fight against her and wanted to test his Resurreccion against hers, though if she could force him into it or not was another matter. Ichigo gathered Ryatsu in his sword and launched a red-tinted white nameless Getsuga Tensho. Tia had to launch another Ola Azul to stop the Getsuga lest it hit her. Seeing that she won't be able to make any progress, she decided to use her Resurreccion. Hunt Tiburon. She was enveloped in a cocoon-like heart-shaped typhoon which she cut through and appeared in her Resurreccion. In the short time she had seen Ichigo's interactions with Yoruichi, she was expecting the boy to be blushing, but much to her disappointment, he stood there impassively watching her with a relaxed stance. "He's not the same Ichigo you're fighting, Tia," she heard Yoruichi shout out to her. "He's the Royal Guard Shiba Kurosaki Ichigo right now, so be ready to be disappointed many ways like this." Yoruichi finished grinning like a cat. If they could do that to begin with. Tia nodded and charged her blade with energy before clashing with Ichigo again. Just as the two got into a stalemate, she released the energy stored in the blade and muttered, "Zero." The blast hit Ichigo point blank, throwing up dust in the process. She jumped back just in time to avoid her head getting taken off of her shoulder. Ichigo came out of the dust with half of his t-shirt gone, revealing his rock-hard abs, and Tia suddenly blushed. She realized this and concluded that it was due to her heart returning to her. That was a potent zero. A nice way to get your opponents off guard, if they're arrogant, that is," Ichigo said, taking a good look of himself, and shrugged, not caring shit about his t-shirt. "Something I'm not. I simply wanted to see its potency." He then proceeded to do the same as her and stored red-tinted black energy and flashed to her and with a clang met her huge sword. "Let's test your Hyro, Zero." The explosion that followed up was quite big. Ichigo jumped back and blocked an overhead slash from Tia. He internally smirked. He saw just a small cut on her body, with the majority being a bruise which had already started healing. "Thank you. My Hyro seemed to be far stronger than it was," Tia said, getting a nod from him. She backflipped and stood in the air, pointing the tip of her oversized shark tooth of a sword at him like a sniper rifle, and said, "La Goda." A compressed water bullet in the form of a shark tooth rushed at him, and like Ola Azul, it also had increased in speed and density. This time Ichigo had to dodge the attack and was blown away when the compressed water bullet hit his previous position, creating a large trail of cracks on the ground. "Impressive," Ichigo thought as he absent-mindedly blocked an attack from Apache who had failed to do it stealthily. He simply backhanded her away before grabbing Mila Rose by her forearm and threw her at Apache, knowing that the two would bicker. Sung Sun, on the other hand, nearly had him, but he wasn't a royal guard for nothing. He instead threw her at Tia, who caught her safely. "Forgive me, Lady Halibel," Sung Sun stated, looking at Ichigo, who merely waited. Tia nodded and calmly said, "Use your Resurreccion." The three nodded and released their respective Resurreccions. Strangle to Death, Anaconda. Thrust, Sirva. Devour, Leona. The three of them charged their respective enhanced zeros and surrounded him. Ichigo simply let them launch it and at the last moment vanished and clashed in the air with Tia. The zeros connected with each other and detonated, throwing everyone away. While the three were getting out of their daze, Tia and Ichigo continuously clashed. Zeros and ballasts were thrown and missed. Getsugas and Lagodas were launched, cancelling each other out. Most of the times Getsugas barreled through Lagodas and nearly hit Tia. Tia backed away and pointed her sword upwards, and large amounts of water spiraled around her. "Cascada," she calmly stated, and launched the huge surge of water rushing at Ichigo, who widened his eyes at the sheer size of the attack. The other three quickly moved out of the way, stood around Tia in a triangular formation. Just as the surge of water was about to hit Ichigo, he raised his sword pointing upwards and calmly said, "Obliterate, Zangetsu." The massive burst of Ryuryoku not only repelled but completely vaporized the surge of water, causing steam to gather around him, leaving only his silhouette visible. The four widened their eyes when they saw the large silhouette and the menacing golden orb staring at them. A bone-white hand came out and swiped its hand, revealing Ichigo in his Resurreccion form. Ichigo opened his maws and let his breath come out as fog with a low growl. Good job on making me use my Resurreccion. But I'm afraid this is over. They shivered in his double-toned voice and braced themselves. Ichigo vanished and appeared behind the four and waited. He heard them yell in pain and 3 thuds on the ground. He glanced from the corner of his eyes and saw Tia panting behind him while clutching her sword arm as she slowly healed. Ichigo mentally praised the woman behind him and turned around to face her only to see a blush on her face and her rubbing her knees while healing. He snapped his fingers, bringing her out of her trance. She raised her sword diagonally, widened her stance. Left foot in front and right foot back. She again charged the Zero and rushed at him. Ichigo also rushed at her with his sword glowing darkly from the black circuit lines. Tia swung with both arms while Ichigo slashed with pure raw power at her with single hand. The swords connected and a small sonic boom took place with Tia flying and landing on the ground. She looked up with one eye at Ichigo, who she could tell was smiling proudly at her under the mask. She searched for her Fraxion and found them already being treated by Tessai. She sighed in relief but yelped when she felt big cold hands carry her bridal style and take her to Tessai. She looked up to see the now maskless face of Ichigo, but the 2 black stripes were there along with the gold on black eyes. She fiercely blushed, turning red, and passed out with a trail of blood leaking out of her nose. She had unconsciously reverted back to her normal form while being carried by Ichigo. Ichigo came out of his Resurreccion and gently handed Tia over to Yoruichi. Little hornet of yours is here. I'm gonna go and deal with her. Yoruichi brightened up at the mention of her name and was about to open her mouth only to have Ichigo beat her to it. You take care of Tia. Neyuri probably was able to detect her presence and wanted her for experimenting. I'm gonna talk with the old fossil about it as well. With that, he sunk into his shadows and came out from Soi Fon's. He had clamped down on his Ryatsu, not letting the slightest bit come out to aware her of his presence. He walked a bit away from the confused captain searching for Tia and coughed. Who's there? She snapped with her hands on her Zanpakuto. She calmed down to see Ichigo behind her and blushed furiously at his state. She looked down and asked, why are you ... like that? She was busy not looking at his young toned body, and for that she missed the amused smirk on his face. Ichigo knew how she was feeling and shared the sentiment, but pushed it down to take amusement from her blushing. He coughed and said, I was sparring and came here when I noticed your presence. What brings you here, Captain Soi Fon? He said in a voice that screamed authority, and with him being the captain commander's senior, she had to speak of the truth, though she had a feeling he knew. She coughed and controlled her raging emotions and plastered her mask of a stealth force commander. She was surprised that he was able to sense her and wanted to hide it from him, but judging by the slight upward curve of his lips, she knew she failed. Nothing escaped his notice. She sighed and said, Captain Kuretsuchi detected a powerful hollow signature and had the captain commander send me to deal with it and if possible capture it for. Not happening. Huh? She asked, dumbfounded, and flinched when she saw his cold eyes staring at her. The hollow has been taken care of, so return to Soul Society and await further orders. I understood. He ended with a smile that screamed sadism. Fearing his wrath, she gulped and nodded. She immediately opened a Senkamen and with a quick bow ran through it. Truth be told, she slightly feared him. During his stay in Soul Society, the two were having a chat when suddenly Kenpachi appeared and demanded a fight. The following event scared her shitless and wasn't able to sleep that night. He smiled very sweetly at him and in a flash, blood sprayed from multiple cuts on Kenpachi and his limbs were all snapped and mangled in different directions with holes in the joints and he had passed out. I'll try bringing Yoruichi with me, okay? He snickered when he saw the girl slip and bow at him again. He waved at her retreating figure and smiled as the gates closed. He sighed and sunk into his shadow and came out of Yoruichi's, surprising her with a hug from behind. Ikai-chan. Yoruichi looked at him confused to see him tired. He was fine moments ago and now looked tired. Probably Soul Society. He looked over her shoulder and found the four sleeping. Soul Society is such a pain. He whined to her as he hugged her tightly from behind. Wanna take a dip? She smiled and said, You're surprisingly bold today. This is a one-time offer. You in? Yoruichi pouted and with a smile picked him up on her shoulder and walked off towards the spring. As promised, from the next day her training had begun. Ichigo had told her that the 10 days that he'll train her would be hell. She took it as a challenge and showed determination to become stronger, much to his satisfaction. Since she was properly used to hollow powers, he had decided to help her with faster regeneration and harder Hyro. To his satisfaction and Kisuke's surprise, she was able to use Kaido. He had taught her the higher levels, one such as Hado's 32, 33, 73, 88 and 90, Bakuto's 8, 26, 30, 37, 61, 63 and 91. He had successfully taught her healing Kaido to the degree where she could heal minor and superficial damage. Like him, she was also a fast learner and had gotten hold of everything rather quickly in 8 days. The rest 2 days were spent on sparring, and this time with his Shinigami Zanpakuto. She was able to force him into Shikai once, and that's where she fell. The release of his Shikai was too much even for someone of her caliber, but she didn't give up. So what if his Shikai wasn't an easy one to handle? She could always keep on trying. And thus his part of her training was done. All that was left was for her refinery of everything he had taught her with Kisuke and Tessai. The evening of their spar that day was used in spending time buying clothing for Tia and her Fraxian, and much to Ichigo's ire he had to tag along. 1 man among 5 women. On top of that he had to be in the center with Tia and Yoruichi on his flanks and the other 3 behind them. Men glared at him with jealousy and he simply ignored them. Funny thing, on their way home from the shopping, a bunch of thugs that came to pick a fight with Ichigo had tried touching them, and before they knew it, their bones were broken and were lying in a heap of groaning and moaning mess. They all shared a laugh, and it wasn't Ichigo who did it but the Tres Bestia. And now, Ichigo and Yoruichi along with the Wizards, his friends and family, had come to see him off. His father had decided to stay in Karakura town even after the war because he wanted his daughters to live a human life which was robbed from Ichigo because of their mistakes. On top of that, Ichigo had come clear with Tatsuki about his matters regarding the supernatural, and as he expected, she wanted to join him as well. Just focusing 7th seat level Ryatsu was enough to acquaint her with the ground, and she relented. Alright guys, see ya. With that, Ichigo, Yoruichi and the Wizards were gone into the Shiba's personal Senkamen to Soul Society. Can't say I'm happy to return to this place, Shinji muttered as they stepped out of the Senkamen into the Shiba Manor. Well, the Central 46 no longer exists with my squad and Captain Commander here. We're the ruling bodies from now on, Ichigo said with a shrug. Welcome home Shiba-sama. The entirety of the Shiba clan roared as soon as they saw him. I'm home, Ichigo exclaimed with a smile. His squad was a bit surprised to see how he was calling Soul Society his home. Everyone, meet my squad members, my Lieutenant Shihoin Yoruichi and my Rukengai officers Hirako Shinji, and his Lieutenant Sakuragi Hiyori for the west, Muguruma Kensei and Kuna Mashiro for the east, Aikawa Love and Yadamaru Lisa for the north, and finally Rajiro Adabashi and Ashoda Hachigen for the south. The Wizards did not get the reaction they had expected. Welcome back, former captains and lieutenants, everyone in there exclaimed and bowed. Forgive us for our insolence all those centuries ago. Shinji, being the de facto leader, bowed back and said, thanks. It ain't your fault to begin with, so don't apologize. Each side nodded and got inside the manor to freshen up. Once they had lunch, Ichigo had led them to the headquarters where he showed them the meeting room and cafeteria along with training grounds and barracks for new squad members. Each of their offices were branches of the headquarters of Squad 0, Serete branch. All respective officers went to their destined offices in the 25th district of Rukengai. Their main objective was to make sure that the Rukengai was changed and made better from the 80th to where the better one started. Their squad could only select or invite students from the academy. They neither accept transfer requests nor fresh graduates, only those that have potential. Since the war was 4 months from now on, he was tasked by his superior officers to train a select few individuals due to their potentials. And thanks to his return, a captain's meeting was to be held, and also for discussion about the hollow that had appeared 2 weeks back in Karakura town. Ichigo and his lieutenant, lover Yoruichi, immediately went to the meeting and stood beside Soi Fon. Their position decided by Ichigo himself, much to Yoruichi's excitement. Let the meeting begin. Yamamoto boomed as he slammed his cone. First of all, welcome back Shiba Dono. He and Ichigo nodded to each other before continuing. I was told by Captain Soi Fon that you've dealt with the hollow, is that true? Ichigo nodded and said, yes it is. Yamamoto nodded and was about to continue if not for a certain clown. What do you mean dealt with? I wanted that Arankar for experimenting. Exactly the reason I dealt with it earlier, Ichigo said without missing a beat. What? Silence, Captain Kuritsuchi. You're speaking to your superior. Him? My superior. A mere Neanderthal like him is my superior. Don't kid with me. Ara, is that so? Ichigo said with closed eyes and that very sweet smile that made both Soi Fon and Kenpachi to visibly flinch. He then opened his eyes and focused a bit of his Ryatsu on him, and the effect was as he expected. As expected of a creature like you. A mere 15th of my power can crush you. Do you really think I got this position for nothing? He continued with that sweet tone and smile. Just so you know, if you dare think of disrespecting me or those under my wing and jurisdiction, then I won't hesitate to kill you, war be damned. Am I clear to you? He reeled in his Ryatsu as soon as the man grunted in agreement. As soon as the man stood up, he fell ungraciously to the ground and started trembling with wide eyes full of fear, and eventually passed out. Lieutenant Kuritsuchi, Ichigo called out, to which said lieutenant picked her captain up and with a bow left the room. Moving on, Ichigo said, gathering everyone's attention. I've been tasked to train a select few for the next 3 months. They are Captain Hitsugaya Toshiro, Lieutenant Abarai Renji of Squad 6 and unseated member of Squad 13 Kuchiki Rukia. These 3 have great potentials and thus I've been tasked to train them. Ichigo told Rukia's name while slightly glaring at her brother, who did a good job once again in putting on his poker face. I see. Can I know why Captain Hitsugaya has been asked to be trained as well? Yamamoto asked, stroking his beard. Of course, Daiguren Hiranmaru has not been matured yet due to its wielder's childlike body, and thus have been tasked to make sure it matured before the war. Yamamoto hummed and nodded. Very well. The aforementioned are excused of their duties for the following months before the war. That is all. He slammed his cone and left the meeting room. As all the captains were leaving, Yoruichi pecked Ichigo on the cheek before kidnapping a very pleased Soi Fon to who knows where. Ichigo had told the squirt of a captain of the 10th, Pineapple head of the 6th, to be at his office in the morning by 7, who nodded and left. He was then approached by Captains Kyoraku and Yukitake. Ichigo-kun, wanna grab a drink? Kyoraku said with his casual laid-back attitude while Yukitake chuckled. Drink? No. Tea? Yes, Ichigo answered, to which Kyoraku pouted and Yukitake laughed. Let's go to my division then. You should tell Rukia the news yourself since she's your friend. I was planning to go see her anyway. The 3 flashed to the 13th Division Captain's office and sat on the couch and chairs. Yukitake on the way had asked Rukia to bring tea for him and Ichigo, while Kyoraku pulled out a sake cup and bottle from the insides of his flowery kimono. Won't your lieutenant kill you? Ichigo asked, having heard the rumors of the 8th Division Lieutenant's no-nonsense attitude. Speaking of which, where is she? Hearing the nervous chuckle of the captain, he sighed. You dumped her, didn't you? Heta? Maybe. Ichigo shook his head in amusement while Yukitake laughed. By the way, how's your health, Captain Yukitake? Oh please Ichigo-kun, just call me Jishiro. And I've been doing better than before. Ichigo nodded and a knock resounded on the door. Come in. Here's your tea, Captain Yukitake, Rukia said as she brought the tray. Oh hey Ichigo, you're back. Yup, good to see you too, midget, Ichigo said with a smirk, amused at the strange smile Rukia had on her face. Just as she was about to retort, he continued, oh yeah, be at my office tomorrow at 7. You'll be training with Toshiro and Pineapple Head starting from tomorrow. Alright Berry, I'll be there. Anything else? Why don't you join us? Rukia-chan, Kyoraku said. And no, I mean, wouldn't I be intruding? Ichigo simply looked at her blankly. What? Wondering if you're stupid? He invited you because you wouldn't be intruding, you midget. Oh, I see. I'll join as well then, Rukia said as she sat beside Ichigo. So Ichigo, mind telling us why they're being trained by you? Well, other than potential of course, it's because, in the next morning, the 3 had arrived at the headquarters and were shocked to see how it looked like. It was at the place the chamber of Central 46 was supposed to be, and the structure was shocking to say the least. A square 2-story building of pure black with red highlights and trim lines stood before them. On the doors was the insignia of Squad 0, Serete Branch. It was a half-skull and half-hollow mask, both missing their lower jaw inside a flame. The surprising thing was that the red trim lines sometimes changed to blue, then white and gold before returning back to red. Judging by the glossy look of the building, they concluded that it was made of marble. No use standing here. Let's go. Shiba Dono did say to be present in his office by 7. Toshiro said as he knocked on the doors. The black marble door suddenly had white lines crisscrossing vertically and horizontally before opening from the middle with a click. Toshiro walked in with Rukia and Renji in tow. When they walked in, they were standing with wide eyes and mouth. From the outside it looked small, but inside, it's huge, Toshiro said, awestruck. Isn't it? A voice came from them, making them turn and flash with their Zanpakutos drawn. Good to see you guys being on guard despite being awestruck, Ichigo said with a smile. They sheathed their Zanpakutos and took a good look at him. He wasn't wearing the shoulder-padded Hikori. Instead, he was wearing a lab coat with glasses on the bridge of his nose in perfect balance. Under his right arm were what seemed like files to them, and the front pocket had pens and pencils along with a notebook. So what do you think of this place? Ichigo asked, moving his arm in an arc. This is amazing, Ichigo. We were completely fooled, Rukia said. Is this design taken from the human world? Not only is it beautiful from the outside, it is the same inside as well. Toshiro asked, still in awe of what was in front of him. I've never seen something so beautiful. Renji breathed out. It was normal for them to react like the way they did. After all, you don't see a transparent roof like this one in whole of Seoul society. Not to mention that it was huge as well. There was a garden at their opposite end where pet animals were playing around. There was also a sakura tree there under which was a shade that looked way too comfortable. A few meters away from it was a koi pond. The roof above them was transparent, allowing them the sky view, and surprisingly they could make out the sun without squinting their eyes. They couldn't feel any heat nor cold. The temperature was something between the two. The floor they were standing on was of black marble with white, blue, red and gold colors racing from one end to another. I see. Thanks. It wasn't like this yesterday. They took a few seconds to realize what he meant, and Rukia asked, "What do you mean it wasn't like this yesterday?" "Exactly as it sounds. I was working on this last night and finished it an hour ago," Ichigo said with a shrug, throwing the three out of the loop. "You can take a walk in the garden. Your training starts at 8:30, Ichigo said and turned, walking towards what they thought was his office. "Wait, weren't we supposed to start at 7? Toshiro asked. "Yes, but it will start from tomorrow at 7. Enjoy the scenery while you can. Because," here he smiled sweetly and continued, "You'll be stuck here for the next 3 months. You'll eat, sleep and train here. Your hell trip begins at 8:30, so enjoy." With that he walked away to his office, preparing their training schedule. The three gulped and walked into the garden. "Let's enjoy what time we have for now. He is a man of his words after all," Rukia said as she started playing with a rabbit. Cats surrounded Toshiro and meowed, trying to get his attention. He crouched down and petted them, his scowl gone, replaced by a soft smile, and Renji was being chased around by puppies. None of them were aware that Ichigo was watching them. After a while, when it neared 8:30, a black cat with golden eyes came and said, "You three, come, Ichigo has called." The cat then turned around and walked towards the office. The three simply stood blankly, trying to process what was happening. A talking cat. Toshiro shook his head and grabbed the two as he followed the cat. He wouldn't have followed the cat if not for the dress it wore along with the lieutenant badge. Toshiro then walked beside the cat and asked, "You're Lieutenant Shihoin, aren't you?" He got a nod from the cat, which brought the other two back to the present from wherever they had went to. "The cat talks," Renji exclaimed with wide eyes. "Took him long enough." Yoruichi grumbled as she opened the door with her paws and trotted in with the three in tow. They once again were shocked when their eyes landed on the room Ichigo was in. Ichigo sat behind a semicircular table. On his right was a big black glowing rectangular box, something Ichigo was staring at. Beside the box was another similar but narrower box that seemed to glow from the inside. Beside it was another weird box that held paper on top slanted outwards. Rukia concluded that those three were a whole computer set with a printer. On the left side of the table was a blood red rack with books in it beside another bigger black box, which Rukia concluded to be TV. There was another smaller box in the far end under a wall closet holding various objects in it. Behind Ichigo was a one-sided view window that gave him proper view to the garden. They were embarrassed out of their wits as they realized that he was able to see them in the garden. On the far end of the room on their left was another rack holding files instead of books in a language they didn't understand. On the opposite side was a big picture frame that showed many people, some known to Rukia, and it looked like it was drawn recently. Rukia then remembered that Ichigo could draw very well, so the picture must have been drawn recently. They heard Ichigo hum while he was going through a file. He snapped it close and stood up. He waved a hand over the rack of files on the wall to their left, and to their shock the whole wall shifted around to show his set of clothes. He hung the lab coat he was wearing and put the glasses in a box that was already there, and wore his Hikori. He waved again and the wall shifted around to show the rack of files. He crouched down, putting a hand on the ground. They heard a snapping sound and Ichigo stood back up again and stepped back as the stairs to the underground appeared. He then absent-mindedly said, "Follow me," and kept on walking down the stairs, followed by the other four. A few minutes later, they stood before 5 massive gates the size of the building. "All right, Lieutenant Ibarai Renji, enter room number 1. Captain Hitsugaya Toshiro and Kuchiki Rukia enter room 3. Wait for me there. I'll be there as soon as I'm done instructing him." They nodded and entered their assigned rooms. Ichigo followed after Renji and entered room 1. "Okay, your first task will be to prove yourself to Zabumaru that you're worthy of its Shikai and Bankai." Seeing as Renji was about to protest, he continued, "I know everything about the Zanpakutos of captains and lieutenants, including some lower-ranking officer, and those without, so don't think you can lie to me." Renji sighed and nodded. "Good. Now enter your inner world and settle matters out with Zabumaru." His part done, Ichigo turned and walked away to room number 3. He entered the room and found the two taking with Yoruichi about something. "All right, now the two of your task will be to improve your physical body. Both of you have the bodies of a child and thus have less durability. Therefore, for the next 3 weeks you'll be doing rigorous workouts. What exactly is your plan, Ichigo? Yoruichi asked, raising a paw. Ichigo smiled sweetly and said, simple. I'll break them, teach them, and at the end of the day repair them for the next 3 weeks. After that, it will be a life and death situation for all of them. Ichigo's smile widened when he saw the two of them pale. Now then, let's begin your training, shall we? I'll make alternate universe. University life with a live-in maid. Chapter 2. It has been 1 month since I served Master Hu. Rukia wondered while folding clothes. Looks like I've gotten used to working as a maid. She then proceeded to clean the floor, and while doing so she peeked under his bed. Hero books under the bed. There is none. After a bit of searching she sighed. He doesn't have porn either. Just how does he survive? Picking up her mobile, she then searched various social networking sites and found that her master likes sushi. So she got down to work in making sushi, and after a while she was done, she decided to go to her master's university, causing her master to shiver subconsciously. XXX. It's been 2 months since he enrolled, and he was quite thankful that no one picked up a fight in him because of his hair. Rukia, on the other hand, arrived outside his classroom and found him shivering in the middle of his lecture. Master, is he trembling from wanting to see me so badly? Woman, get yourself checked by a doctor. After the lecture, just as she was about to call out to her master, a blonde had approached him, blocking her out. Sorry, have you seen a pencil case around here? Rukia heard the girl speak. Ichigo shook his head and replied, no, I haven't. I see. Thank you. Just as the blonde turned, her bag collided with his, and much to his horror, a familiar toy fell to the ground. Kaya, sorry, she exclaimed as she saw him scowling at an object that fell to the ground. That bitch. Rukia then turned around and thought sadly, what should I do? Because of that thing, Master will end up even more of a loner. The girl then handed the fallen object over to him and said, I'm sorry. I accidentally dropped something of yours. Ichigo simply took it from her and nervously smiled as he put the object in his bag and thought the same thing Rukia did. Don't tell me she has no idea what this is. Thank God she doesn't. It'll be hard without any writing instruments, right? Want me to lend you a mechanical pencil? Ichigo offered. No, it's fine. I've already borrowed from a friend of mine, she said and smiled. I'm not even sure if we might meet again, but I will feel bad if I can't return it. But you really are kind. Ichigo blushed and glared at Rukia, who was eavesdropping from a bit far away, making her gulp and smile. No, it's not really. He then replied to her statement with his face away from her, glaring at Rukia. As for Rukia, the woman was confused at the scene of her master and an unknown beautiful girl with flowers blooming behind them as the two conversed. What's up with the atmosphere? That red and white pencil box of yours was cute. Maybe I'll buy one too, the blonde girl said as she walked away from him out of class. No, that was not a pencil case, Ichigo muttered as he stood up as he found no signs of his midget maid. Rukia hid herself outside the classroom in a corner and saw the blonde leave. I wanted to speak up, but I guess that would have been awkward. She then turned and walked towards the gate, losing her mood and wanting to see some cough videos. Cough. Just what the hell are you doing here? Ichigo's voice came from behind her. I was found out. Chapter 9. Calm before the storm. Ichigo was impressed with the pace that the three were progressing. Renji had taken 3 days to prove himself to Zabumaru and then was tasked the same thing the other two were given. 50 push-ups, 50 squats, 50 sit-ups, and running one end of the field to other by 5 minutes, physically covering 1 kilo. This went on for the three for 2 weeks straight, with an hour break for lunch and snacks before returning in for the night. By the end of the 2 weeks, they had lost weight and had a boost in muscle mass. This should have been expected from the amount of inhuman training they did. He had given them a whole day break for recovering from the hell they had gone through by personally cooking for them. To his pleasure, they had eaten everything. He to this day still thanked Hikofune and his mother for teaching him how to cook every kinds of food. Cooking had been one of the lessons he had learnt from the bunch. He looked through the window of his office at the sight of the three relaxing under moonlight with the animals. He noticed that Renji and Rukia had started getting along as well. Before, they had a line between them that prevented the other from approaching the other, and now it was gone. Thank God they made up. Yoruichi was in her cat form, curled up on his lap, sleeping as he petted her. He was kind of glad that she was here for him. Training them had turned out to be harder than he had expected and ended up tired most of the times. Other than physically training them, he had to make sure they didn't tear any kind of muscles, so he had to treat them every day at the end of the day. Tomorrow their real training begins. He sighed and carefully cradled Yoruichi in the crook of his arms and headed inside his bedroom to turn in for the night. Rukia had never been this tired before. When she was told of the training regime for the first 2 weeks, she had literally fainted and was roughly woken up by Ichigo. She was scared shitless when she had seen the scowl on his face. She was reminded that the one she was seeing was not her friend but their trainer Ichigo. At the end of the day he had told them that he would be like that during training hours and had apologized as well for the rough treatment as well. She had gladly accepted his apology and said that it was fine because if he hadn't then she wouldn't have taken the whole thing loosely. She had noticed the increase in her muscle mass and had a hard time recognizing her own body. She was glad and relieved that she and Renji had made up and the tension between them no longer present. "So what do you think he'll train us on tomorrow?" Renji asked, pulling Rukia out of her reminiscing. "I don't know actually. When I was in the living world with him, he had taught me some hand-to-hand combat moves and polished my skills with the sword, albeit with a wooden one," Rukia said with a shrug. "No wonder you were able to fight on par with me. No use thinking over it. We'll find out tomorrow and who knows, it might be tougher than what we did the past 2 weeks," Toshiro said as he stood up and dusted himself. "For now, let's go to sleep. We have to wake up early tomorrow." The three nodded and went to their borrowed quarters to turn in for the night. Ichigo stood opposite to his 3 students and observed the changes. He was satisfied with what they achieved the past 2 weeks and decided to proceed with the next stage. He coughed in his hand and said, "For the next 4 weeks, I'll be polishing your Zenjutsu, Hakuda, Ho-Ho and Kaido. After that will begin your final stage of your training. Any questions?" Seeing as they had none, he continued, "There are a lot of things that the academy teachers don't teach you. They don't teach you the deadliest and quickest methods of dealing with your enemies. For example, in Zenjutsu, I'll be teaching you a move that will end the fight as soon as it begins. This move will allow you to bisect your enemy in half, and whether it's vertically or horizontally depends on you. In fact, you can even blast out your opponent's heart without them knowing. Such is the deadliness of Zenjutsu." He paused to let the information sink in and continued. "In Hakuda, you can crush your opponents with bare fists to paste, for example Ryokan or Thunder King fist. You can even tear up a hole in them with a single punch or obliterate them with a single double-fisted punch. These 2 are Ikatsu or 1 bone and Sakatsu or 2 bone. However, for all these to create the desired damage, you need to learn how to channel your Ryatsu to your fists and form invisible gauntlets, or if you're like Kenpachi then brute force is enough to destroy a whole structure. Am I clear so far?" Toshiro raised his hands and asked, "Why aren't we taught these in the academy?" "It's simple. Your teachers of now are nothing but dust compared to the teachers of nearly a millennia ago. Your teachers as of now are nothing but fodder materials and thus aren't in any squads in the Godai 13. They just don't have the enough amount of Ryatsu and physical prowess to attempt these properly since they require heavy precision." Toshiro, satisfied with the answer, nodded and stepped back. "These moves that you talked about, were they taught to you by Squad 0? Rukia asked, having been curious of his teachers. Ichigo shook his head and said, "No. That crazy bunch just polished them. I was taught them by former Shihoin clan head Yoruichi and my father. Toshiro here is well acquainted with my father, so he knows how dangerous the man can be." To this Toshiro nodded, convincing Rukia that the man-child was actually worthy of the position of a captain. "But why is your father so childish?" Rukia asked, shivering as she recalled his childish habits of hugging her out of nowhere and announcing her as his 3rd daughter. Toshiro and Ichigo both sighed before the latter answered, "It's a common trait that all Shiba possess. Thankfully I don't have it since I've taken much after my mom." He ended with a shrug. Moving on. In Ho-Ho, if you're fast enough you can leave speed clones of yourself confusing your enemies and escape certain deaths. And there's nothing much to talk about Kaido, so that's it for the briefing. Let's start. First week, we'll focus on Hakuda. Let's start with Ikatsu. Ichigo snapped his fingers and huge boulders appeared in one straight line. He smirked when he saw their gobsmacked reaction. There are approximately 20 boulders. Now see carefully what I do. First, channel your Ryatsu through your body and spread them equally. After that, increase the Ryatsu flow to one of your fists. With that done, take your stance. Cock your fist and make sure you punch in a straight line so that the Ryoryoku enhanced punch can create a perfect circular hole in these 20 boulders at once. He then showed them the procedure. With a grunt he punched at the center point of the first boulder, and the shockwave of the punch threw the other 3 backwards. Now take a look. The 3 did as told and their jaws fell to the ground. A perfect circular hole that went through every single boulder, giving them a clear view of the other side. Ichigo snapped his fingers and 30 boulders appeared, 10 in 3 lines. Your job is to perfect this or reach near perfection by tomorrow midnight. Good luck. With that he flashed back to his office, leaving the 3 pale and frozen in their place. We'll be doing that in 2 days, Renji yelled, pulling his hair. Be grateful that he's given us 10 instead of 20, Toshiro said as he took his position in the middle with the other 2 on his 2 sides. Alright, let's do this. So this is his office. It seems like it. but I don't remember it being like this. Neither do I. Currently 2 captains of Squad 8 and 13 along with the lieutenant of Squad 8 were standing outside the gate of Squad 0, Serete branch in hopes of meeting Ichigo and hopefully learn the progress of the 3 trainees. Kyoraku from the corner of his eyes noticed a board with the outline of a hand beside the gates. Wondering what it was, he got closer to it and raised his hand. "What are you doing, Shunsui?" He stopped and looked over at his friend who stopped him in the last moment. "Just curious about what this is." He then placed his hand on the outline and got electrocuted before being blasted backwards with swirls in his eyes and smoke coming out of his body. Shunsui, Yukitake rushed over to his friend and checked if he was okay, and to his relief as Nanao confirmed that he was. He sighed and was about to reprimand his friend if not for the laughing sound coming from a rooftop. The 3 glanced over to the rooftop of the building opposite to the one they wanted to enter. The one laughing was a black cat garbed in orange, black and white with the lieutenant badge on its back as it rolled over laughing in its place. "Ha ha ha ha. I knew it. I knew it. TFFT. I knew you'd go for it. Ha 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 ha." The cat, which he now recognized as Yoruichi, kept on laughing, pointing one of its paw at Shunsui. "That's a biometric scanner only for squad members and for security measures." Shunsui pouted and stood up with the help of his friend. "Geez, Yoruichi-sen, you should have warned me. If I did, then we would have missed this sight." Ha 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 ha. Yoruichi calmed herself down and hopped down before standing on a platform of Raizhi on the same level as that of the scanner, and put her paw in the center of the large handprint. The handprint glowed purple before the gates silently opened. "You came here to see Ichigo, right? Follow me," she said, and walked in with the other 2 captains following her. As soon as the 2 entered the building, Yukitake's jaw, Nanao's book and Kyoraku's straw hat fell to the ground. How? Nanao choked out as she took in the interior of the building. "How is a garden larger than the building is present here? It's beautiful." Yukitake sighed out with a smile as he took in the scenario. He noticed that despite the rooftop being transparent with the sun glaring at them, the place was surprisingly less hot than it should be. No, more like it's in between hot and cold. True, but how is this possible? I mean, the building looks smaller compared to this from the outside. Kyoraku said, dusting his hat. Ichigo changed the interior overnight before the kids' training. Yoruichi answered as she trotted towards his office. "Wait, Ichigo-kun changed this place was overnight." "How?" Yukitake asked, confused as to how such a feat was possible. "He's the student of Kisuke Urahara, remember? He's just as much of a scientist that fool is. And besides, he's a great cook as well and is well versed in the medical department. Just like Captain Anohana." Nano asked. Not exactly. He can heal wounds Kaido cannot. He can surpass Anohana, heck he even surpassed Mayuri. But he can't do operations like Anohana, so no, he hasn't surpassed Anohana. That or he forgot to tell me about it." The 3 were surprised to hear such accomplishments of a teen not even the 10th of their age. "How many years did he exactly train Yoruichi-san?" Yukitake asked, curious about the youngest Shinigami that's their superior. "Approximately 5 years. Or here." She pushed open the door with her paw and announced her presence. "I'm back, Ichigo, with guests." The trio followed after Yoruichi still in her cat form into the room and found Ichigo working with glasses on. They noticed the glowing boxes on either side of him and racked their brain to remember what they were. "I know. I've seen the whole thing," Ichigo said without looking up. He put his pen and glasses down and said, "Welcome to my office, you 3. Take a seat." He pointed to the chairs opposite to him. They nodded and sat down on the chairs while Yoruichi made herself comfortable on Ichigo's lap. "So what brings you here?" Ichigo asked, cutting to the case. "Geez, can't we drop by to check on our friend?" Shunsui said with a lazy smile as he pushed his hat up a bit. "Not exactly your friend but your superior." Nana silently mumbled, unaware that Ichigo heard it. "Yes, you can. Sorry about asking. Anything new?" "Yes, actually. A captain's meeting will be held in an hour to discuss of our finding," Yukitake said, turning serious. "It seems that Aizen plans on creating the Okan to enter the royal realm and kill the Soul King. And to create the Okan, 100,000 souls in a spiritually rich zone must be sacrificed, which happens to be Karakura town. Right?" Ichigo concluded, surprising the 3 with how well informed he was. "Don't worry. Kisuke has taken preparations to replace Karakura town with a fake one to make sure the real one doesn't take any kind of damage," Ichigo said as he continued petting Yoruichi, making her purr in pleasure. "Well, you're quite well informed. How's that?" Kyoraku asked, genuinely curious as to how the teen was so much aware of his surroundings despite the massive workload he has on his shoulders, making the man feel guilty for his laid-back nature. The library was moved to the security under Squad 1, and under the orders of the captain commander the 3 had checked up everything to find out Aizen's plan. During my time with Squad Zero, Hyasu made sure I know everything about Soul Society, and every single events in the last 1,000 years. So yeah, the fact that a fool like him would aim for something so cliched wasn't that hard to find out. You're a walking library, Kyoraku muttered as he slumped in his chair, pouting as he realized that all of their hard work was for naught. If you knew about this, then why didn't you tell us earlier? And have you become lazier than you already are? Ichigo deadpan, causing the others to laugh at Kyoraku's expense. I agree with Ichigo-kun here. We're getting out of shape. So I suppose it's a rather good thing he didn't tell us. Still, if we hadn't found out, then what would you have done? Yukitake said. I was planning to talk about it in the upcoming meeting, but seeing as you already found out, it makes things all the more easier for me. Ichigo said with a shrug. Makes sense. Say, Ichigo-kun, how are they progressing? Instead of answering, Ichigo simply turned the TV on his left and showed them the visual of the three training together. The three were too shocked to say anything. They had heard about surveillance system in Squad 12 but had never seen one till this moment. The three shook themselves out of their trance and looked at display, which showed the three of them punching boulders kept in line. They winced every time the shorter two punched and recognized what they were practicing. Are you sure they can learn Ikatsu? Yukitake asked, concerned for the shorter ones. Don't worry, they won't be able to damage their opponent like we can, but surely can do enough to hurt, Ichigo said as he stood up with Yoruichi on his shoulder. Let's go. There's a meeting soon, right? Better not be late. He turned the TV back to its original position and walked towards the door with the three following him. Let's come back here again after the meeting for lunch. I'll be cooking. After the meeting, Ichigo had led the three captains and lieutenant down the basement into the room where the three were training. The third captain was Byakuya, who wanted to see how his sister was doing. Yoruichi had transformed into her human form to help Ichigo with cooking, which he gladly appreciated. Byakuya was also invited to join for lunch with them, since he was also joining them with observing the three train. Byakuya wondered just how much of an enigma Ichigo was to everyone. Being skilled in fighting is one thing, but inventions on par with Mayuri, if not greater, and knowledge of medicine and healing that was close to that of Anohana. Byakuya guessed about him being skilled in fighting from the quick incapacitation of his lieutenant faster than his eyes could track. Not mention the fact that he had put down a brute like Kenpachi so quick that even the fastest captain of Godai 13 didn't notice. Yoruichi isn't accounted for since she is not a part of Godai 13 anymore. Squad 0, Serete branch is the testament and proof of their failure. The head captain of this branch, yes, head captain, since there are 4 more captains in charge of the whole 320 districts of Rukengai. From what he had been told, the headquarters of the squad lacks any members since it only accepts low-tier captain class Shinigami, or pick an academy student and train into one. On the other hand, the other 4 sub-squads openly welcomed any graduates since they were police forces and thus needed manpower. The headquarter itself is supposed to be the living quarters of the head captain and his lieutenant of said squad, training place, meeting room, cafeteria, dining hall, lab, and the perfect view of nature just past the entrance. The building from the outside itself was a grandeur to uphold. A square 2-story building of pure black marble with red highlights and trim lines. On the doors was the insignia of Squad 0, Serete branch. It was a half-skull and half-hollow mask, both missing their lower jaw inside a flame. The surprising thing was that the red trim lines sometimes changed to blue, then white and gold before returning back to red. Byakuya turned back to observing his sister, steely determined to learn Ikatsu, and she was doing better than he expected. Already there were numerous small fist cravings on the surface of the boulders with smaller holes here and there. He could feel pride swelling up in his chest as he saw her progress. He noticed that she was bleeding but a small break, and her hand healed back to normal with her going at it again. This simulation he spoke of is quite thoroughly made. Any injury of theirs heals after a short break. This is far beyond what Kiritsuchi is capable of, Yukitake said as he observed the 3 going at it. He was quite surprised to see Rukia's progress, and Toshiro's one was surprising as well. There were deep fist marks that he assumed went halfway through the boulder. Well, it doesn't surprise me considering that Ichigo-kun here is Urahara's student. So surely Ichigo-kun can think up of inventions Kiritsuchi can't. Kyoraku shrugged, annoying Byakuya with how blatantly familiar he acted with Ichigo. A bell rang, followed by a voice that boomed, "All right lad, his lunch is ready." It was Ichigo who said that through the mic. Byakuya saw the 3 sigh in relief and walked towards the exit alongside them with slumped shoulders. The 3 had gained quite the amount of muscles and grew as well. He nodded at Rukia, who bowed and walked beside him. He said nothing because he planned to see her progress after she had completed training. The 7 entered the dining hall, and 3 of them let their jaws fall to the ground at the various assortment of foods on the dining table. Those 3 being Nanao, Kyoraku, and Yukitake. Byakuya's eyebrows shot up to his hairline while the 3 trainees simply cleaned themselves, said their prayers and dug in with the grace of a noble surprising him. So he does this for them every day. Byakuya thought, what are you waiting for? Wash your hands and dig in, Ichigo said as he took his seat in the head of the table with Yoruichi by his right. The 4 did as told and immediately sat down. As they took the first bite they moaned out loud, Byakuya included, while the others smirked. This is so good, Kyoraku said as he ate more. If you were a girl I immediately would have proposed to you. And I would have stopped you mid-proposal, Ichigo retorted, causing Kyoraku to choke on his food. So cruel, Kyoraku sobbed while the others laughed. I have to say this is delicious. Not even the chefs in the manor can cook this good. Byakuya complimented, getting a thanks from Ichigo. Who taught you cooking, Ichigo-kun? Yukitake asked, curious about his teacher. Ichigo gulped his food down and said, I always helped mom when she cooked for us, and after her passing away I had to use the knowledge bestowed upon me by mom and the cooking books. Then there's Hikofune-san who taught me more. He finished with a shrug. Yukitake nodded and got back to eating. You have every qualities that women dream of their husbands to have. I'm jealous of Yoruichi-san, Nana said with a smile. Yoruichi smirked and nodded. She then looked at Byakuya and asked, say Byabo, wanna be our kid's godfather? Byakuya choked on his food and started coughing and hacking. Rukia passed him a glass of water while Ichigo slapped his back. Byakuya then glared at Yoruichi and said, no way in hell am I being the godfather of a bunch of werecat and berry hybrids. He smirked in satisfaction as he saw the gobsmacked reaction of his sister, Yoruichi, Ichigo and Renji. Those 2 don't mix together that well, you know. Ichigo silently grumbled as he kept on eating. He then turned to his trainees and said, you'll have an hour of free time after eating and then get back to training. Understood. He smiled when they nodded. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Yoruichi mock glaring at Byakuya, who was smirking all the while eating. Well, at least Kisuke agreed to be the godfather of our kids. He smirked when Byakuya once again started coughing and hacking. Ichigo shifted in his bed slightly as sunlight hit his face. Feeling a weight on his chest, he looked down to see the sunlight draping over the purple hair of his naked lover, who always sleeps naked. He lied on the bed watching his lover slumber and ran a hand through her silky smooth purple hair, making her sigh into his chest. His chest tingled and he pulled her closer, thinking of the past few months. Rukia and the other 2 had progressed rather fast. They have learnt everything he had taught them, even if the damage they dealt was nowhere near his. The only thing to teach them more about is Kaido, and after that will be their final lesson, followed by an exam. Yamamoto had deployed Byakuya and few others to Karakura town in case Aizen had sent any Arankars to bring harm. From what he heard, along with Byakuya, 2 members of Squad 11, namely 3rd seat Madara Mikaku and 5th seat Ayasugawa Yumichika, along with the lieutenant of Squad 10 Matsumoto Rangaku and lieutenant of Squad 9 Hisagi Shuhei, tagged along. This worried him about Tia. He had contacted Kisuke and told him to warn Tia about the Shinigami deployed into the town. The man had jovially passed on the message to her, after which he had talked with her, asking about her progress. He was glad when he heard that she'd learnt the Kaido he hadn't taught her and had progressed greatly in Hakuda. He was brought out of his thoughts when he felt movements above him, followed by moans. All right there, oh that's the spot. Yoruichi moaned, causing him to turn a deep shade of red. Ichigo, this little. He felt his lower Zanpakuto stand up in attention thanks to her constant grinding on his crotch. He then slowly grabbed her butt and pinched hard, hoping to wake her up, only for it to backfire as she moaned louder. Harder. She moaned with a goofy grin on her face and saw her drool from the corner of her mouth. To add to his embarrassment, he heard Shiro cackle in the back of his mind while Akane giggled. He inhaled and exhaled, hoping to calm his lower Zanpakuto, and when it did, he grabbed her by her shoulder and shook her. Wake up, Yoruichi. It's morning. He saw her scowl in her sleep, mumbling about stupid mornings and sun. Wake up. He shook her rapidly and actually succeeded in doing so. She opened her eyes and seemingly searched for him and kissed him when she found him. Morning, Icon, she said, rubbing her eyes. Morning to you too. She then smiled and said, I had a very nice dream. She drawled out. Wet dream, he thought dryly. Her smile then turned into full-blown grin and said, I saw a dream where you pounded me hard into the ground. You were so sadistic that I can't wait for our wedding night. Kyle, Yoruichi. Well, looks like your training is done. The 3 months are up. 1 month till the war. Let's go. We've got a meeting to attend, said Ichigo, standing opposite to his students. Yes, sir. The 3 chorused. Ichigo nodded and turned around towards the door. Let's depart. They are waiting. The 3 nodded and followed behind Ichigo towards Squad 1. In a few minutes the 3 were standing in front of the doors. Ichigo looked over his shoulder and nodded at the trio, getting 3 in return. Ichigo pushed open the door and entered the room with the 3 trotting behind him. Every captains and lieutenants looked at them and observed their changes and were shocked. Yamamoto opened one of his eyes and took in the appearance of the three. He had to open his other eye to make sure that he wasn't dreaming. Did the squirt grow? He immediately closed his eyes and said, "Welcome back, Captain Hitsugaya. Take your position. You two, Lieutenant Abarai and unseated Officer Kuchiki Rukia." The trio nodded and took their positions. Toshiro in his empty position before Rangaku, Renji and Rukia both behind Byakuya, who had returned, and Yukitake. Byakuya glanced at Rukia and noted in her changes. She had grown taller and slimmer. She had let her hair grow past her shoulders down to her mid-back. Unlike the past where she only had a mask of confidence, now she reeked of it by so much that the mask didn't seem necessary. He then glanced over his shoulder and nodded at Renji, taking in his appearance. The man had grown his hair as well and grown taller along with getting more muscular. He dropped the visor and wrapped a maroon bandana. Though the change of his fellow captain, Hitsugaya Toshiro, was the most noteworthy. The kid had grown into a tall, lanky man with his Zanpakuto on his hip instead of on his back. "I see you've changed a lot over the duration of 3 months," Yamamoto commented. 3 months, my ass," Renji dryly thought. After they were done going through the 4 Shinigami arts, they had spent nearly a year in their inner world learning more about their Zanpakutos and trained there. Thus their unusual growth, something Ichigo had predicted. After that, the remaining week was spent with spars. "Any reason behind your unusual growth?" Yamamoto asked the three. In case of Lieutenant Abarai and unseated member Kuchiki Rukia, there isn't much to say other than pushing their bodies beyond their limits. In case of Toshiro though, Ichigo trailed off, letting said person take over. "My sudden growth may seem unusual, but it's due to Dagur and Hire and Maru reaching maturity that I've grown. My body changed accordingly to the power. That's all." Yamamoto nodded and said, "Good. Now how do you think the tides of the war has changed Shiba Dono?" Ichigo nodded and said nonchalantly, "Just send Toshiro alone into the battlefield and go there 10 minutes later. You'll be introduced to a simple frozen wasteland. His Bankai's true power is outright ridiculous." Yamamoto nodded and stroked his beard. "I see. Now on to the matters of the war." The meeting went on for 2 hours, and after the dismissal of everyone left the meeting room except Ichigo, who followed the head captain into his office. "Captain Kuchiki," said captain, stopped in his paths and turned to come face to face with his sister's captain. "How can I help you, Captain Yukitake?" he asked without any touch of emotion, already having an idea as to what the older captain wished to talk about. "I was thinking of promoting Rukia-chan to a lieutenant. Surely you've noticed her growth in the last 3 months. You've seen it personally as well, haven't you?" Byakuya closed his eyes in thought and opened them. "It depends on her performance in the war." With that he was off to his office, still not willing to let her handle herself. Yukitake thought before returning back to his own office. "Was what you said about Captain Hitsugaya's Bankai true?" Yamamoto asked, taking a sip of tea. His question could have easily been taken as one for doubt, but Ichigo knew better. It was out of curiosity. Ichigo took a sip of his tea and said, "Yeah. But I forbade him from releasing its full power. The Quincy's are always watching from the shadows. We can't reveal our trump cards to them so soon." "Do they know?" "Only Toshiro." Yamamoto hummed and drank the rest of his tea. "And besides, this war is simply a warm-up. I could have invaded Hukomundo with my squad and finished off Aizen, but that would have caused your captains to become rustier. Something that definitely can't be allowed during the war against the Quincy's." "I see. I only hope that there would be as less casualties as possible. We'll need the manpower after all." I'll make alternate universe. University life with a live-in maid. Chapter 3. Having been caught by her master in the university, she decided to try and act innocent to see how he reacted. What a coincidence to see you here," she said, rubbing the back of her head. She dropped the act as soon as her master dryly said, "I see." At this point she decided that it's better to settle for the truth instead of beating around the bushes. "Sorry, I just wanted to see what kind of life you have in school." Ichigo sighed before asking, "Did my father ask you to do it?" He was a bit relieved to know that his father wasn't meddling with his affairs when she shook her head and was grateful for it. He sighed and looked at Rukia. "Since you came all the way here, would you like to have lunch together?" He had to cover his eyes when Rukia started shining with happiness. The two of them sat in the cafeteria and bought their own respective lunches. "It's my first time having school food, Red Heart," Rukia said after taking a bite. Is that so?" Ichigo asked, surprised. "Could it be that master is the kind who prefers school food over bento?" "I really don't care which one I eat." He paused mid-sentence as he saw tears gather in her eyes. Hastily he said, Don't cry. Bento is good. I'll eat your bento." That seemed to have done the trick, considering that she calmed down a bit. "But I'd be really happy if you stop making this kind of bento." Among the assortments of rice along with vegetables and meat, there was a sentence written with sauce on the rice that read, "Let's do hentai stuff once you get home." She giggled, satisfied with her own handiwork. "Still calling me master in the university is weird." "Ichigo will do," Ichigo said as he took another spoonful of rice and vegetables. "Okay, then you'll have to call me Rukia," she replied. "Aren't I doing it already?" "How bold of you, Ikai-kun," Rukia teased. "Don't get ahead of yourself," Ichigo muttered, fully aware that the crazy maid didn't hear him. Rukia suddenly grabbed his hands and with a smile said, "With this it's like we just came to the university to flirt." "Caillou," Ichigo blushed and sputtered. "Don't get ahead of yourself," he said, this time loudly. He sighed and stood up. "I'm going to get some water." Rukia stood up and said, "I can only to be interrupted by him." "It's fine, just pass me your cup." She did as told and sat down, observing his departing figure. "He's so kind." "Hey, are you eating by yourself?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. It belonged to a blonde male, and not alone. She immediately replied, not liking the close proximity with him. "A friend or boyfriend?" Seems like the brat didn't catch the drift. "Not a boyfriend really. He's my master who dominates my everything," Rukia proudly stated, but was surprised to see him seat beside her with a smile. "A fake one at that," she mentally snorted. She might act like a child, but she isn't older than them for nothing. She knows things that they don't. "What kind of nonsense are you telling him?" Ichigo said as he appeared and lightly hit her with her cup of water, to which, much to his embarrassment, she moaned. "Geez, Ikai-kun, be gentle with me," she said, rubbing the place she'd been hit even if it didn't do anything. Acting was her favorite. "Be quiet," Rukia blushed and said. "Please be as gentle as possible when you're touching that spot of mine. I haven't touched you anywhere, and if it's that embarrassing, then why don't you stop talking?" Ichigo said, completely forgetting the fact that they had a spectator. Rukia closed her eyes and gripped her cheeks, panting while muttering, "It felt so good. Ha, ha, Ikai-kun's thrusting. Ha, ha, it feels so good." "Shut up. You two certainly get along well. Are you two dating?" their spectator said, letting them know the fact that he was still present. "That's wrong. Divided by that's not wrong," both of them said at the same time. "That's obviously wrong," Ichigo said, to which Rukia nodded. "Then what is your relationship?" Mr. Unknown asked. Ichigo and Rukia huddled closer and whispered to each other. "It's a maid and master relationship," Rukia muttered. "Don't talk about it in the university," Ichigo hissed. "Eh? Is that for real?" Apparently Mr. Unknown heard them. Rukia then blushed and said, "It's true. I'm his maid for him to do Ekai stuff with." "Really? That's so cool," Mr. Unknown exclaimed. "Wait, you idiot." Extra chapter. Aizen looked on in smug satisfaction at the work of his Arankars, even if there were only 4 espadas remaining, those being Stack, Ulquira, Akio, and Grimjow. He was impressed that Grimjow was still alive despite Noitora, who was stronger than him, died. On top of that, Ulquira revealed his segunda etapa, the next stage of Resurreccion, further proven true by Akio, who had defeated his foe without resorting to his own segunda etapa. He expected Tozen to die, so it didn't matter to him. The only ones remaining of his army was him, Jin, and the 4 espadas. He had to say that he was impressed at the might of the Godai, even if the exiled captains, the so-called Visards, had appeared announcing that they only had a common enemy with the Godai, that being him. He forbid his espada from killing the Shinigami. After all, he wanted them to be there during his ascension. Somewhere during the fight, 3 more former captains appeared. Furasaki Isshin, formerly Shiba, Kisuke Urahara, and Yoruichi Shihoin. Too bad they only helped him in his evolution. He glanced at the fallen unconscious Shinigami once more before turning around and walking. "Jin, open the Senkamen, will you?" Said person opened the Senkamen and stepped aside, letting Aizen and his espada enter. Due to his departure, Aizen missed Isshin, Kisuke, and Yoruichi sitting up. "Well, what to do now, Kisuke?" Yoruichi asked. "Isn't it obvious, Yoruichi-san? We'll have to trust in them waiting on the other side. Anyway, I'm leaving. I'll be with the twins and IchiHime. You coming?" "Sure, why not?" "Did you tell them what happened here?" "Yes, I did, Yoruichi-san." Knowing him, he'll probably take all of them down by himself. She'll be pissed though. "Nah, I know my son. He'll let them have some of the fun." Stepping out of the Senkamen, Aizen and his cohorts were greeted by the sight of a silent Karakura town. "Looks like everyone is asleep," Aizen said as he looked across the town. "Well, my dear Espada and Jin, you may rest now, leaving the rest to me." Receiving nods, he turned around and started walking, only to be stopped by an unknown voice right beside him. "How rude, ignoring me even though I'm right beside you." Aizen leapt to the side and took in the appearance of the unknown individual. The man was tall, lean and muscular with orange hair and a variation of Shinigami garb along with a variation of a captain's Hikori with the number 0 and orange hair. Kurosaki Ichigo, Aizen asked with wide eyes. From the corner of his eyes he saw the Espada and Jin tense and ready to take on the unknown enemy. Ichigo smiled and chirped. Oh my, looks like you do know me. Of course I would. I do have a hand in your creation after all. Aizen replied smiling, but on the inside he was wondering why he couldn't feel anything from the orange yet. Lord Aizen, Ulquira called out still in his segunda etapa. Who is this? Who cares? I'll take him down. Grimmjow yelled before lounging at Ichigo, who simply pulled out his Wield Zanpakuto and held it by his side. Die. Just as he was about to hit Ichigo, to everyone's surprise he fell apart in two, passing by Ichigo's sides while he smiled on. What the? My aren't you the rude one? Ichigo chided, looking down at Grimmjow. When did he cut him? Everyone thought with wide eyes. Kurosaki Ichigo, Aizen called out, getting his attention. I see you've become a Squad 0 officer. Congratulations is in order, I suppose. Thanks, but don't think that I'll be going easy on you. HMPH. We'll see about that, Aizen said as he raised his hand and indicated the others to leave. Akio nodded and opened a garganta only for it to slam shut, surprising him. Now where do you think you're going, Espada-san? Ichigo asked as he grabbed Akio by the shoulder. Akio lashed out with his scale arm and successfully hit Ichigo, only to recoil in pain. Now it'll be like this. I'll be facing Aizen, Jin and Stack, while Ulquira and you, Mr. Whoever you are, will be left to deal with. Ichigo paused as the air shimmered before a large shadow covered them with four cloaked figures on the huge monster's shoulder. Them. Everyone's eyes widened when the figures removed their cloak, revealing Tia Halibel and her Fraxian. Damn it, Stark cursed under his breath as he looked at her. Aizen's eyes narrowed as Tia was wearing a short denim jeans, a black t-shirt under a white vest. On top of that, she wasn't wearing her mask. He suddenly gasped as he saw a long blade sticking out of him and looked over his shoulder to see Jin grinning at him. When did he? Ha 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 ha. What's with this sudden plot twist? Ichigo laughed. This isn't funny. The Espada yelled. Lord Aizen, Ulquira said as he flapped his wings and lounged at Jin. Girls. Ichigo snapped his fingers and Ulquira along with Akio was grabbed by Ion, who then ran off to a different direction with its masters in tow. Kill him, Kamishini no Yami. Aizen gasped as a hole opened up in the center of his chest where the Hagioku was. Jin grabbed it and flashed away, hiding his presence from everyone except Aizen and Ichigo. Damn it. Are you alright, Lord Aizen? Stack asked as he held Aizen. He was surprised when the man started chuckling. His eyes widened when the hole sealed up, leaving a small one where the Hagioku was supposed to be. Thank you for your concern, Stark, but do me a favor and keep Kurosaki Ichigo occupied while I'm gone to retrieve the Hagioku, Aizen said before looking at Ichigo, who seemed amused. This concerned him. Ichigo was amused instead of shocked at his regeneration, as if he was. He's analyzing me. He then asked Ichigo, surely you don't mind. He was expecting Ichigo to stop him but was surprised by the answer. Sure, I'll entertain myself with the Primera, Ichigo replied, waving his hands in a shooing motion. Aizen narrowed his eyes as he saw Ichigo turn towards Stack and hold his sword by his side. This concerned him. Even he knew that after the battle Stack had, he'd be too exhausted to continue fighting someone who is stronger than him. But he shouldn't care. Stack would simply be a necessary sacrifice to his plans. He nodded at Ichigo and left. After Aizen was gone, Ichigo sheathed his sword and sat down on the ground, leaving a dumbstruck Stack. He patted the ground beside him and said, "Don't worry, I'm not gonna fight you. You're too tired and lazy to fight again." Stack narrowed his eyes and observed Ichigo for a few moments before shrugging and sitting opposite to Ichigo. He didn't get out of his Resurreccion yet. After a few moments of observing, he asked what's been on his mind since the Orangette's arrival. Why is it that I can't sense anything from you? Ichigo smiled and said, because I exist on a separate dimension. Surely you heard what Aizen said, didn't you? How do you know what he said and what he didn't? Ichigo simply pulled out his phone and showed it to Stack. I have source. Stack nodded and frowned before asking, then what would you say about the captains? I was able to sense them, but they were able to keep their pressure to the barest minimum, not affecting anyone. How did they do it? They're subconsciously controlling their Ryatsu, keeping it chained and releases only when necessary. I see. A sudden flash of light in a mushroom smoke cloud caught their attention. Ichigo squinted his eyes and saw Tia fighting her successor, who by now was in his segunda etapa and was losing. On the other hand, Ion was struggling against Ulquira. Ichigo sighed and pointed his fingers in their direction as he saw Ion falling backwards and Tia flying away from her successor. Hado-99, Goryuten Metsu. Staek's eyes widened when the ground started shaking and from afar 5 dragons of fire and ice erupted and attacked his comrades. He cursed when their Ryatsu vanished. What was that? Staek asked Ichigo, who seemed disappointed. Kaido, a level 99 Hado. Ichigo answered and vanished. With Aizen, beautiful. Aizen, having gone through another transformation into a butterfly man, breathed out as he saw the dragons devour his 3rd and 4th espada while Rangaku cried over Jin's half-dead form. He then turned in the couple's direction and raised his sword. Just as he was about to bring it down, his hand stuck. Hey now, no need to deliver more pain to a dying person. Ichigo was grabbing his arm. Rangaku gasped and whispered, Head Captain Shiba. Ichigo smiled over his shoulder and raised a hand in greeting. Yo, Head Captain Shiba. Aizen thought, confused. In Godai there's just ... Captain ... Commander ... So he was the head captain of Squad 0. He smirked, proud that his creation kept on surprising him. Though one thing kept on bugging him. Why couldn't he sense him? Pure raw physical power instead of Ryatsu, right? Well then Aizen, let's take this somewhere safe, shall we? Ichigo said, to which he raised an eyebrow. If there was anything he won't tolerate, then it would be ordering him around. What gives you the rig, MMH? Before Aizen could finish, Ichigo had grabbed him by the face and flew straight to the outskirts of Karakura, passing over Stack and then Tia and her Fraxian. He nodded at her, giving her the silent order to return. She nodded back and left, but not before binding her successor, who had somehow survived the Kaido in multiple Bekudos. When he arrived at the right spot, he threw Aizen downwards, sending him straight into the earth. Aizen pulled himself out of the crater with a hand on his face. An expression of disbelief was seen on his face. What? He didn't get it. How was a mere mortal able to manhandle him? Doesn't matter. He caught me off guard and now I'll show him true power. He stood up with a smirk and said, I applaud you for your success in catching me off guard. Why, thank you. Let's get this over with, shall we? Ichigo replied, pulling out his 2 sealed Zanpakutos, amused that the man in front of him failed in getting a rise out of him, if the scowl was anything to go by. Ignite and disintegrate. Turn white and solidify. Getsu no Hikori. He was enveloped in a torrent of fire scorching the ground around him. When the fire died down, it revealed him holding his massive blades with fire running along the backside. Neat, right? Ichigo asked with a grin. A Getsu ha, just like mine, Aizen thought as he observed the blades with interest. Well, allow me to show you the power of a transcendent being. He was still rattled by the fact that he still didn't feel anything coming from the orange yet. Doesn't matter, he'll fall before me, right? He spread his wings and let himself get enveloped by a bright flash of light, failing to blind Ichigo. Ichigo kept on glancing around, searching for signs of the brunette's appearance. A flash of light behind him caught his eyes and he quickly raised his left blade, blocking the strike. He grinned when he felt the raw power behind the strike as the mountain behind him was blown apart to pieces. He quickly snapped his wrist and faster than Aizen could expect delivered several cuts on his body. Aizen gritted his teeth as he touched the cuts that burnt more than Ryujin Jaka. Because of that, his healing speed had decreased as well. Once the cuts closed up, he looked at Ichigo, who was grinning at him. He snarled and dashed, swinging Kyoka Suijutsu at him. Again Ichigo blocked with his left blade and this time slashed him from shoulder down to his hip. He couldn't stop the pain sound leaving his throat as the gash this time burnt more than the cuts from before. Denshu Getsuga. Aizen leapt out of the way of the fire that was aimed at him, but even if he did dodge it, the heat of the flames hit him, boiling his pristine white skin. He hissed and willed the Hagioku to regenerate. At this rate he'll end up as Aizen Teriyaki. He leapt back to dodge a slash that was aimed at his chest exactly where the Hagioku was. The Hagioku pulsed in protest from the heat radiating off of the blade. Neppa. Aizen was surprised when nothing came at him, but understood what it was a moment later as unbearable heat scorched his skin, getting through his Ryatsu armor. He fell to one knee as he gasped and panted for lost breath. You okay? Aizen gritted his teeth when he heard Ichigo's mocking voice. You know, I was expecting a bit challenge from you, but in the end, even you failed to entertain me. Ichigo's voice sounded cold and bored. Aizen stood up and slashed at Ichigo. Hado-32, Aokasen. A humongous yellow blast of lightning shot from his sword and headed towards Ichigo. He took this time to start incanting his favorite Hado. As he saw Ichigo weave out of the way of the lightning blast, he pointed 2 of his fingers and roared, Hado-90, Kurishitsugi. He smirked when he saw the huge black coffin trap Ichigo. He didn't dare let it down, knowing that the longer he kept, the more the person in it will be stabbed with spears. He was startled when the box lit up in fire and shattered, spreading flames everywhere. That was a good Kurishitsugi but weak nonetheless. Ichigo appeared a bit above him with his right blade raised high, and the air around it shimmering in heat as the flames roared. Be a good boy and sleep. With that he brought his flaming blade down on Aizen, cutting a good chunk off of his body on the left side. HHH. Aizen roared in pain as he lost a good chunk of his body, which to his shock immediately disintegrated. Not even ash remained. He landed on the ground with a loud thud, gasping and silently screaming in pain he never experienced before. He willed the Hagioku to regenerate what he lost and got up on his right knee with his sword stabbed on the ground to bear his weight. I'm not surprised that you survived. Any normal person would have disintegrated the moment Getsu no Hikori came in contact the way she came down on you, yet you just lost a chunk of your left side. It's impressive, Ichigo said from behind Aizen, startling him. Ichigo scowled as Aizen teleported himself to another hill opposite to him. Just as Ichigo was about to say something, a heavy weight pressed down on him, widening his eyes as he dropped to his knees. He looked up and saw Aizen once again going through another transformation. The pressure increased when Aizen was enveloped in purple Ryatsu and vanished to shower the hill in blood, revealing Aizen in his new form. That sure surprised me, Ichigo said as he stood up grinning. Now you holofid. Before he knew it, he was being held by his neck by Aizen, who was glaring at him through his blank eyes. Your time is over, Kurosaki Ichigo. Thanks to you I've gone through another evolution. Your arrogance will cost you for not unleashing your Bankai. Oh shush you, Ichigo said. He slashed Aizen again, sending the monster flying back a few meters. He scowled and said, even with this new form of yours you can't push me into using my Bankai. Though I'll honor you with this. Rise-he strings shot out of his body and a black hole opened up beside him. The Rise-he strings shot into the hole and pulled out a dado, a second Zanpakuto. Using the Rise-he strings, he held the three blades perpendicular to the ground parallel to each other and said, obliterate, Zangetsu. Heavy weight pressed down on Aizen as he observed Ichigo getting engulfed in Ryatsu, and soon a solid white sphere formed with Ichigo in it. He stood up from the ground with bated breath as the sphere started cracking before shattering to reveal a humanoid lizard holding now a pair of same but white blades with blue flames licking the backside. Let's get this over with, shall we? Ichigo asked as he let out a visible puff of breath, snapping Aizen out of his stupor. With a boom, Ichigo appeared beside Aizen, both blades reared back. Quickly Aizen swung his sword vertically and blocked the dual blades, but didn't take in the account of the force behind the swing, so he was sent flying backwards. Using the skulls on his wings, he created 6 zeros and launched them, hoping to deal some damage to Ichigo. What he didn't expect was for Ichigo to coat both blades with Ryatsu before forming a crimson zero in front of teeth before absorbing it in both of his blades. Fragger, Getsuga Zero. Twin crimson waves of energy clashed with 6 purple death beams, canceling each other out. The explosion caused by the cancellation created a massive mushroom cloud and sent sonic waves hitting both Ichigo and Aizen. Why you're a monster, Aizen snarled and Ichigo snorted. Speak for yourself. With that, both of them clashed again and again, sending waves that reshaped the landscape. Both of them appeared several meters away from each other, with Aizen healing at a very slow pace while Ichigo's own cuts healed in mere seconds. Ichigo then pointed his blades and to Aizen's horror said, Hato #99. Goryuten Metsu. The whole place shook and 5 skeletal flaming dragons shot out from the ground before launching themselves at Aizen, who was too shocked to dodge, and hit him straight and square. And another explosion occurred. Ichigo swung his blade and dispersed the dust around him. Hearing a thud, he sonadowed to the place and saw a fully scorched Aizen lying face down on the ground with 2 broken pieces of Hagioku that slowly turned to dust. Ichigo sighed and resealed his Zanpakuto, coming out of his transformation, and flipped Aizen onto his back. To his surprise, Aizen regenerated and healed up to his normal human self within mere seconds and rose to his knees, hacking. What the? Aizen said as he looked around and snarled when his eyes landed on Ichigo. You failed, Kurosaki Ichigo. You failed to kill me. Actually I didn't, Ichigo said, pointing behind Aizen. Aizen looked back and paled as the gates of hell opened up and a Kushinada stabbed him before dragging him away for eternal punishment. Happy journeys, Ichigo said, waving at Aizen. Curse you, Kurosaki Ichigo. With that, the doors slammed shut and disappeared. Galaxy-like eyes snapped open and roamed around the room their owner was at. Figuring that the place was his own chambers, the figure sighed and thought, this dream again. Things to Tell form author. Chapter 12, I am here, with things to tell. Hello dear followers. 'Tis I, Ichigo Oga. How are you? I hope all of you are in good health. I have been Alive enough, I guess. University is a pain though, sad but relieved face. Anyway, I believe all of you. If not, at least half of you know that Bleach has returned. So, to commemorate that, I want to write a whole new Bleach story that hopefully won't require too much of my time to consistently update. But, the thing is, I don't know what exactly to write. Those who have remained up to date with my latest works in FFN and a few other sites that I shall not mention might know that I write only self-insert stories. So, if you do not like self-insert stories, I suggest you kindly tap on the back button of your browser, mobile, and quietly take your leave. No, it won't be an Ichigo self-insert, that I can assure you. And if pseudo-opus MCs aren't your thing, then do it too. You're still here. Thanks. So, the plan is, unfortunately, unalive. You see, I am not quite sure on what I want to do in the new story. All I know is that I want to write a Bleach self-insert story. No, the filler arcs, novel, and other games won't be included in my story. Sorry if that miffs you. But, before I get into the in-depth explanation of why the plan is unalive, or unborn to be precise, let me tell you the main reason why I'm making this post. I want to make a team of co-writers, proofreader, and critical reviewers, all of whom would be willing to spare me some of their precious time to help me write this Bleach story, or if possible, any other future stories in general. Really. I'll take between up to 5 co-writers with whom I would brainstorm ideas with for the story and its chapters. I'll take up to 5 critical reviewers, people who would get to read the story in advance and let me know what they liked, what they disliked, and how I and my co-writers can improve the story. Finally, up to 2 proofreaders who would be able to refine the chapters and make them look better for the readers. If you are interested, or know people who are interested, contact me in the PMs. No, not through FFN app, but through the web. FFN app never informs me of incoming messages, and after a short interview of sorts, I might give an invite to a Discord server that I will make after getting at least 1 co-writer, proofreader, and a critical reviewer. How long do you have to apply? At least a month from the date of this chapter's publication. I might extend it to as late as New Year's Eve even if not everything goes all according to the Kikaku. Still here? Good. I'm gonna elaborate on the plans I've had for the new Bleach story in several sections below, and it might get very big and you might lose interest. You have been warned. Plan 1A. At first, I wanted to include it as a book in my The Hollow Victory series, but now I'm not so sure about it. What's The Hollow Victory, you ask? It's a compilation of books where Izayoi, the MC of my Medium Psychosis verse, gets cursed with infinite reincarnation, and one of his reincarnations would be in the Bleach verse, or I know of it. The reason? It would allow me to save time and be lazy, as in I can just summarize how and why the MC would get the powers or abilities he got, blah blah blah, without having to go into flashbacks, world building, making the MC struggle in general, etc. You get the idea. But, problem is, as I mentioned above, I'm not sure if I should go with it, because I have this strange gut feeling that not many would like it, and what's the point of writing a story that won't be liked by most readers, if at all? I know I myself must like the story itself, but knowing that people out there are loving my story helps boost my morale. That's why I'm undecided on whether I should really go with it or not. But if I do, what should I do with it? As in, what kind of background should Izayoi have in the Bleach verse? For example, the one I had in mind went something along the lines of Izayoi dying in high school DxD, only to wake up as a soul in Rukengai 69 smirking face with a shit ton of Ryuryoku, but none of his powers from DxD except for his instinctual ability to sense and manipulate energy. As for when exactly he shows up in Soul Society, at least 300 years before canon events start. No, he wouldn't remember all the things that went on in Bleach, cause I don't want him to. Just kidding. The reason he won't remember everything is because he would have had spent over 400 years in DxD world, where in the end he gets cursed by an OCXE goddess in the minutes leading to her death in his hands to infinitely reincarnate. And by then he would have naturally forgotten a lot of things about Bleach except for the core plot points. Izayoi, with his yet-to-be-controlled, wildly fluctuating Ryatsu, would easily get detected by the scanners in Division 12's R&D lab, leading to Kiryu informing Yamajai about it, thus sending out a team to check up on what is going on at Rukengai. With Izayoi having no idea of such being the case, he would go around Rukengai, prodding for info. Eventually, shit happens. His overbearing Ryatsu causing problems among the Rukengai people would result in Shinigami coming to recruit him into the Shino Academy. After they've made sure Izayoi is not a threat, that is. He would reluctantly agree to be admitted, only finding out weeks later that he's in Bleach when a teacher in Shino Academy demonstrates their shikai, and prompt him to use the Asachi to try his hand in creating some kind of connection with the Zanpakuto spirit. After a minor internal panic from the realization that he was in Bleach, Izayoi is me. And I'm a fan of Bleach, so he would be too. He would settle into life in Shino Academy. Izayoi's life in Shino Academy will be summarized and compressed into something that would give away just enough of what he can do and can't, what he's learning, etc. Eventually, after requiring the standard time of graduating, he would join either Division 6, 8, 10, or 13. For the record, he would temporarily join Division 2 to learn their basic stealth thingies and Division 4 to master Kaido before permanently joining either of the aforementioned Divisions 6, 8, 10, or 13, my personal choice being Division 10. And before you get miffed about Izayoi taking the standard time of graduating or longer, there's a reason for doing so. Izayoi is fucking paranoid and would lie low to build up his powers and abilities in secret until the canonical shit blows up in Serete do Ichigo and Co. Breaching through Serete's dome thingy. He would show parts of what he's truly capable of after Aizen reveals his betrayal and shit to everyone. Yes, that's all I'm gonna reveal to the general public. Only those who qualify to be my co-writers would know more. Then I faced a problem coming up with Izayoi's Zanpakuto. In case you don't know, Izayoi means 16 days old moon. How is this related to his Zanpakuto? Allow me to elaborate. One of the Zanpakutos I had in mind for Izayoi was to be named Getsu, and I hope you all know Getsu means moon, hence the connection. And of course, you can't name a Zanpakuto Getsu and not let it have the ever iconic Getsugatensho. I still don't know why Kyoka Suijutsu did not have a Getsuga Tensho of its own like Zenjutsu, and Ingetsu did. No, I'm not going to accept the Getsuga Tensho being a family-only thing between Isshin and Ichigo. I'm gonna alter it if that is truly the case canonically. So, yes, I had the names for Izayoi's Getsu series Shikai and Bankai ready. What I did not have ready was their special ability outside of the Getsuga Tensho. I wanted the Shikai to have increased cutting power, as in letting Izayoi cut through anything and everything with little to no effort. Kinda like Virgil's Yamato except for the cutting through reality. And creating warps etc. The Bankai would grant Izayoi a full body armor which would increase Izayoi's durability and strength while retaining his speed. But then I remembered those are at their core, the Shikai and Bankai special abilities of Zaraki's Nazarashi, so I had to drop them. Then I wanted the Zanpakuto's Shikai to let Izayoi create and manipulate the lightning element to his will, with its Bankai making him appear like the Shinto god Raijin while letting him control the weather, making it rain, flash thunder and drop lightning from the sky. But then I remembered that's the core concept of Sasakai's Bankai, and had to fucking drop it. Now I'm just sitting here and losing my mind over what Izayoi's Zanpakuto should be capable of doing. I even had the names prepped for both kind of Zanpakuto's Shikai and Bankai. RED. Plan 1B. This too would be done through inclusion in the Hollow Victory series as a book. Except, in Plan 1A, Izayoi was a Shinigami and here in Plan 1B, Izayoi would start off as a newly evolved Ajuchas, the thing that Gillians evolved to 300 years before canon events. Only when Izayoi understands his situation that the hunger for souls kick in, leading to him feasting on other Gillians and fellow Ajuchas for several years on end until eventually after a battle with a bad kitty, he evolves into a Vasto Lord. Of course, conflicts with Baragon will happen, until Izayoi eventually would come across Neliel and become a part of her group. Either Neliel or Stack, and I'm honestly more tempted to have him go with Stack, cause sleep. Eventually, a couple of years would pass by until Aizen comes to recruit them. Of course Izayoi would join, and if it meant he would be able to return back into something that is by all means a human with headpiece or something. As for the Winter War, yeah, Izayoi would actually get the closest to killing Aizen, and would have succeeded as well if it wasn't for the Hagioku. No, Izayoi won't be affected by Kyoka Suijutsu's hypnosis. His mental fortitude and Ryuryoku would be way higher, heavier and denser than Aizen's own for the hypnosis and illusions to take place and fool him. After the Winter War, Izayoi would just negotiate with the Soul Society to live in the human world as Hukomundo was too bland and boring, thus getting a gigi from Kisuk, fake certifications and a job. No, I have not yet decided on Izayoi's Resurreccion, but it might be fire, ice or lightning element with demonic theme. Plan 2. This one is akin to the Medium Psychos's main story itself, where Izayoi is reborn as Ichigo's twin. How would their powers work out? I suppose most of you know it's widely theorized that Karin inherited Isshin's Shinigami powers while Yuzu inherited Masaki's Quincy powers but weakened, hence her lack of initial soul seeing. Following that, there are 3 directions I can lead the power inheritance of Ichigo and Izayoi to. Direction 1. Ichigo still inherits white with his Shinigami and Quincy powers, while Izayoi inherits only the Shinigami and Quincy powers. Oswalin happens. Nasaki fucking dies. Izayoi almost dies, but manages to survive, reducing him to a pure Shinigami. Direction 2. Ichigo inherits only the Quincy and Shinigami powers while Izayoi inherits white and Shinigami powers. Oswalin happens. Ichigo is unaffected by it, but gets very affected by Masaki's death as per canon. But Izayoi does some damage control leading to Ichigo not hating himself or blaming himself for Masaki's death, and the whole 9 yards. Direction 3. Both Ichigo and Izayoi inherits Shinigami and Quincy powers. As for white, he gets divided into 2 for the twins to inherit, so both becomes freak of nature. However, this is a direction that I might not take, unfortunately. I like Opus, but not too Opus, unless it's a pure crack fic like One Punch Man. Anyway, I haven't given much thought to this plan yet, so I'm gonna ask you guys' opinion on how to proceed with this plan. Do make sure to mention which direction you want me to take and how you would execute them. And that's about it. These 3 are the only plans I have now for my new Bleach story, Sorry Grinning Face with Sweat, which is where you, my dear followers, come in, especially those who want to write Bleach stories, but can't due to lack of confidence in your writing, or not being good at English, or other reasons etc. I want you to come up with detailed story ideas and contact me in the PMs. I cannot guarantee you that I will reply instantly, because I'm quite busy with university, but I will try to get back to you at the soonest possible time and expand on your ideas. If I like your ideas and feel like giving it a go, self-insert or OC insert, I'll give you my Discord ID to move the conversation to a platform where I'm almost always active and will reply almost instantly. Yes, it's kind of like taking on requests, commissions, but for free, which is why I'm going to set up a few basic rules for the request, commission stories. 1. No crossovers. You can request me to pull in other characters from other franchises, but don't expect them to have the same background in the Bleach world that they did in their original world. 2. Opus is fine. Hybridization of characters is fine. But you know what's not fine? Over-the-top hybridization and OPness. No, I will not accept Saitama-esque characters. That Baldy is Opus cause he's a gag character. 3. Do not ask me to write romance fics, cause romance has never been my forte. Still isn't. 4. Male MCs only. I'm a male, and I want to write stories centered around male MCs only. For now, these 4 rules will do. I will add more later on in the future if I need to. That is all. Thank you to those who have read the entire thing.